Module 9 is where we start to really get into the nitty-gritty of legal problem solving and legal research. Now, legal research is a subject that you'll touch on again next year if you're doing a full-time load, and you'll be doing a much more in-depth look at legal research. But of course, we've got to give you the basic tools now to get you started, so that later on you can build on those. It's also this week we see the change of textbook over to the research textbook. It's a much more technical book. It's not as interesting to read in the same way that the new lawyer is a sort of an exploration of the issues. The research textbook is really focused on and to the point, which is good. When you're learning technical skills, you need to be able to know what you need to do and what you need to look up later on. The focus this week is also around cases and case law, and locating them and how you use them. So there's some interesting skills that you will start to learn now, but they take a lifetime to master. And one of the complexities of case law is, of course, the fact that there are multiple judges. They have different opinions, and even when they agree, they might only agree on the result. They might disagree on the way in which they get to that result. So we'll start equipping you with some of the tools to be able to take that apart and understand it. Sometimes it's not an issue. Sometimes the judges all concur. It's nice and straightforward. But one of the reasons why common law is the way it is and why we need lawyers in the common law system is that it's often more complicated, and it's usually the very crucial cases that are more complicated. A crucial skill that you'll learn here is noting up, which is where you find out where there is new decisions based on a case. Americans call this shepherdizing, because their noting up service is shepherds. But we have a service through Ostley that we can use, and this is important as well. Particularly important, I mean, it's very important in real practice, but it's also important as a student, because sometimes you'll find that we'll set you an assignment on a particular case when we know that 2 or 3 months ago there's been a new decision on that case that's totally changed the law. And this is a way of testing whether students have actually noted up, or whether they've just gone to their textbook, which may be 2 or 3 years old, and use the old version of the law. So it's very important to be able to note up and to make sure whether the case has been considered or rejected or approved in a later case. The other thing we're going to talk about this week is legal encyclopedias. They are a fantastic tool, but unfortunately they sort of presume you already know the law before you use them. So my best advice with legal encyclopedias is get starting using them early and don't be daunted. One of the problems of using legal encyclopedias, particularly the online version, is they just sort of open up in the middle of a topic, and they don't explain anything, they don't give you context. Even in the digital age, I like the print versions, because the print versions you can open up at the chapter on contracts, you can find the chapter on whatever particular part of contract you're looking at, and you can narrow it down and find where it physically is. This is much more difficult to do with the online version. And I think, from what I discussed in my earlier video on problem solving, the legal encyclopedias are useful to finish, not necessarily to find your first port of call. Your first port of call is often textbooks, to remind you of what are the key issues, what are the important parts of this area of law. And then what you'll then often do is use the encyclopedia to drill down and say, okay, what's the technical parts of this? What's the stuff that's not covered in the encyclopedias? What are the new things? What's the things that are not covered in the textbooks? What are the new things that have been covered in the meantime? And what is the actual current specific law now? And again, I think it's a good standard rule for this whole area is you've got to practice. You've got to get in, try it and see. There's no point waiting until you have an assignment come in or a moot or something that's urgent, and then suddenly go, oh, I was thinking I was going to learn how to use those things. You need to get in, you need to muddle through them, you need to make mistakes, and you need to actually start physically getting your hands dirty and working with the tools, and that's the only way you're going to learn.